My cheating wife paid the ultimate price for her affair after I, her betrayed husband, found out. A few weeks back, I saw someone coming to my house on the new doorbell camera, but I never saw them leave. The next day, the footage disappeared. So playing detective and starting to investigate, my soon-to-be ex-wife STBXW realized I was onto her. She thought I had found evidence, probably from the recently installed doorbell camera she deleted. I was setting up in-home cameras and Vs at the time. However, she ended up confessing to an ongoing affair lasting about a year, during most of the time I spent helping my elderly parent. She admitted I deserved better and suggested a fair divorce, selling the house and splitting the proceeds. She might even pay alimony for a while. We share most of the debt, and the house sale should cover it, leaving a bit to start over. It's disheartening and unfair. I admit I felt anger and wanted revenge, but there aren't many people to expose her to who would care. No one on the other person's side to expose to. He's single, divorced, and surprisingly more informed about my marriage than I was. Their relationship isn't close, and it's likely not her first time. Despite the urge for revenge, I let it go without seeking more pain. This situation comes at a crucial time as I deal with elder care issues, and I don't have the energy or desire to fight for anything. She offered to fix things, but we both know there's too much pain and wrong between us. I'm still broken from being cheated on over 25 years ago. Some scars never heal. I've recently questioned if my entire relationship was a rebound, but I'm a committed person, and once I commit, I'm all in. Maybe I did it too soon. Now I can't see trusting anyone again. So there's no confrontation, revenge, or exposure, just two lives torn apart. Now I have to rebuild myself without my pride and ego. It's another failure in a long list of them. Life as I knew it is over, and I'm just going through the motions to handle things. I don't want to go home, but I have to pack and prepare the house for sale. Then, I need to find an apartment and I don't even know where I want to live. It's all just lousy. I wasted more than half my life on someone. The only blessing is not having kids, since once the divorce is final, I won't have to be in contact with her, though that will take time. Every time I hear her voice, the pain resurfaces. My version of pain shopping is looking back at our pictures and the otherwise good times we had. I can't figure out why I'm so stuck in the past, mourning something I thought I was ready to move on from. I lie awake thinking about everything I did wrong, believing I was never good enough for anyone, and wondering why I deserve to be treated poorly. I reflect on how crappy my life is and why I always seem to end up on the losing side. Now I'm old, broken, and feel like I don't deserve this crappy life. No hopes, no dreams. Just alone in my thoughts. More thoughts from later last night. She hasn't even called or texted me since I left. I did tell her not to, and I meant it. She probably knew I did, but not a single sorry, not a "are you okay?" Is she just sitting at home watching a show like it's any other Tuesday? Or maybe not. During the Christmas before last, we discussed how we ended up in a dead bedroom. I mentioned that about 15 years ago, we went through many premature births from IVF, and the experience scared me away from closeness for a long time. I was terrified of accidentally getting her pregnant and losing the baby. It led both of us to seek mental health help, and we barely pulled out of deep depressions with help and luck. Now, things have worsened. After her confession of a year-long affair, I said something very hurtful about her deserving to lose our kids. I might send her an apology text for that statement. Could saying my fears from over a year ago have triggered her to cheat on me? I only shared that with my therapist at the time, and we decided it wasn't the right time to discuss it with her. Maybe she blames me for our years of a dead bedroom. Maybe it's all my fault. Oh God, what have I done? After thinking it over, against my better judgment, I called. I knew she probably wouldn't pick up, so I left a voicemail apologizing for what I said. I admitted it was hurtful and not true. I acknowledged that it's over and suggested we handle it like adults in our 50s, not like the 20-somethings we were when we met. I expressed hope that she finds what she needs and left it at that. My wife called me last night. She appreciated my apology and knew the things I had said were to try to hurt her. We didn't discuss much, except for her apologizing again and blah blah blah. I did tell her I would be coming home this weekend and that I needed her not to be there. It was mostly civil, but I made it clear that I don't care where she goes. I suggested she stay with her boyfriend since that's who she wanted anyway. She denied it, insisting she wants me back and that we can work it out. She asked for one chance, promising to do anything to make it up. I'll admit I wanted nothing more than to go back in time to any time other than the last year, that I would even go to the worst times in our lives instead of now. But I stood firm this time and told her I don't see any way we can be together now. It's been a year, and I can't imagine feeling the same for her. I only asked one question: how many times? She stayed quiet for a long time, but I refused to say anything. She asked if I really wanted to know, not wanting to hurt me more. I said I need to know. That's when she hurt me even more, revealing it was only a few times in the beginning. After about a month, it was almost every day when I was away, and some weekends when she claimed to be at the gym for about 6 months. In the last few months, it was about once or twice a week while I was away. It made me sick. I muted the call to let out some of that pain. So, she was close to him more times in a year than we have been in the past 10, 15 years. Hundreds of times. Maybe even more than the beginning of our relationship. I wanted to ask more questions, but I was too hurt and ashamed. I wanted to know if he was better, bigger, and what they did, but I couldn't take any more. I just said she should go to him this weekend so I can be alone at home and gather more of my important things. I don't even have a permanent place to take them. I've been awake, got a bottle of good scotch, and now I have to work and take care of my parent while hungover. As I thought we had agreed, I'm back at the house to gather some things. Thank goodness she's nowhere in sight. I'm gathering some documents I forgot when I left last weekend, packing clothes and other things. It's going faster than I thought. I'm determined to keep moving before I get too down. In the basement, packing up a few things is tough, but I want to keep moving. Faintly, over the tunes, I hear water running in the pipes. It goes on for a while before I notice. I walk upstairs and hear the shower going. I'm stunned. I make coffee and decide it's better to go out to my car. I sit in the driveway, considering driving away, but I just sit there, stunned. I start writing a nasty text but decide against it, opting to wait for her to leave. My new neighbor introduces himself as I stand outside having a smoke. I don't tell him anything but try to be cordial. As we part ways, the garage door opens, and she's behind her car, asking to speak to me. I stand through introductions from the neighbor and my wife. We go inside, and I'm still dumbstruck. I ask why she's here. She explains she can't check into the place she's staying until later today and was at the gym. She thought I wouldn't mind showering and grabbing more things. She assumed she could come and go without a problem since she didn't see me around initially. I stand there wondering who this person in front of me is. Luckily, after a brief and awkward apology on her part and a suggestion for more counseling, I look her in the eye and say no. I tell her to leave. I have things to do, I add. She agreed to stay away. I say, this is what you caused, and go back to the basement. I sit here typing this, trying to control myself and my blood pressure. I just heard the garage door open and close, so thankfully she's gone. Now I'm a bit of a mess, wanting to get back to packing, but my bourbon collection is staring me in the face. I already had one good belt earlier. I know if I have another this early, today will be even more of a bust. So here it goes. Sunday comes after another night without sleep, filled with packing and a lot of anguish. Everything was tough, the memories, pictures, and items we had chosen together. Our wedding album and other things just stirred up more emotions I tried to control. Despite the difficulty, I persevered and focused on the things that mattered most to me. Unfortunately, one item brought me the most pain, the sealed urn containing our children's ashes. We had planned to combine our ashes and have a relative scatter them in the ocean near our favorite beach when one or both of us passed. Well, that plan is off now. But here's the thing. I don't know if it's wrong that I want to keep it with me. I know I have to discuss this with her eventually, but I'm unsure how that conversation will go. I don't know if we can have it opened and split the remains. It feels wrong, like neither of us is getting them. I'll ask my attorney about it when I retain one, I guess. I didn't mention it to her since my confidence in her was below zero at that point. Sunday evening, I'm nearly packed with things I'm taking with me for now. I wanted to have enough so that if I couldn't tolerate coming back for a few weeks at least, I'd have the important keepsakes, documents, etc. I knew she was supposed to return after 9:00, as we discussed, and I didn't really want to be there. I resisted the urge to dismantle all the electronics, reset the router, etc., out of spite. I felt like the bigger person for once, with the help of some supportive calls from a friend and some DMs. Anyway, it's about 7, and I'm loading the last bits into my car. Well, no shocker here, but yep, she shows up. She comes in looking a bit shaken, but not nearly as bad as I felt. She starts off saying it looked like I was ready to leave again. If I really had to go so early, she asked, could I at least talk to you? I was already frustrated that she was even there and wanted to be stronger than I knew I was. I said I didn't want to be too late and had to get back in time for the weekend to help with my parent. I told her I only had a few minutes, but if there was something important, she could tell me, and if needed, I could call her while driving. She then said she understood, but that she really needed me to know what was going on with her this weekend. She wished we could talk without me being angry. She said she spent the weekend alone. Not sure I believe this, but considering all that had happened and what she's done to us, she said she knew I couldn't forgive her, but that she does and always will love me and be in love with me forever. She said she knows I don't believe this now, but that she was so angry with herself for hurting me so badly and destroying the only man who ever loved her unconditionally and was always there for her. I was doing my best to not shout, sob, hug her, or anything, and just give her the stoic look of indifference. I'll admit I failed. My eyes watered up, but I struggled to not let the tears fall. Yeah, I failed at that too, but didn't really speak. I figured I'd just listen and hope to still just leave after she said what she had to. I listened to her say many things and justifications, reasons why she thought she did this for so long, why she didn't stop herself, why even when she thought I knew, she thought I just didn't or wouldn't care. She explained how she thought I must have been cheating for so many years, how I never seemed to want her, how we had been just roommates. Yet, she still knew I was the only man she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. She claimed she wanted to come to me so many times and confess, but knew I would never be able to accept her back if she told me what she did. At every turn, she repeatedly admitted it was entirely her fault and not mine. She mentioned her intention to seek counseling to understand why she engaged in such behavior for an extended period. She claimed our life together had crumbled because, despite having everything she desired, she thought she could live the rest of our lives without closeness, a decision she said she had come to terms with. She even stated that I could be with other people if I desired. It all seemed like typical behavior of someone who cheated, as I suspected. She eventually shared that during our conversation 2 Christmases ago, she became really upset when she learned I was afraid of closeness with her due to the fear of getting her pregnant again. She argued that my concerns about pregnancy were merely excuses, suggesting that I never truly wanted her or a family, especially when I resisted adopting. She admitted to growing upset every day, feeling that the only thing missing in our lives was closeness and family, which she believed I had kept from her. She expressed anger, believing that I had always blamed her for our child losses and lied every time I claimed otherwise. She felt I had been disgusted by her for losing our children, and that resentment lingered despite all those years. She claimed to have loved me enough for both of us. When my parents' health worsened, she thought I was just using it as an excuse to be away from her. Suddenly, everything clicked in her head, and she believed all her fears were true. She just wanted to be loved, and she felt I hadn't been truthful about my feelings all along. The person she referred to as the gym guy wasn't even a possibility until all these realizations hit her. She insisted she had never thought of being unfaithful and initially did it out of spite. Afterward, she realized how much she missed closeness. Although she kept telling him it was only about closeness, she claimed she had no intention of leaving me and didn't discuss me with him, though that seems doubtful now. Eventually, she admitted to growing a connection with him, telling him she hadn't felt like this in years, but it was nothing like what we shared. She reached the point where she insisted it was over and hoped I could forgive her. She wanted us to talk again to find a way forward, even if we decided to split, asking for time before considering divorce. She argued that I had been dishonest for many years and should give her the chance she believed she deserved. At this point, I'll confess I couldn't handle it anymore and exclaimed, "You deserve a chance? After a year of cheating?" I reminded her that when I shared my past fears, I had worked through them in therapy and had never mentioned them again to avoid this exact situation. I explained that despite my efforts in recent years to reach out, be more engaged, romantic, and connected, she responded minimally. I revealed that opening up my deepest secret with her was intended to bring us closer, but instead, she used it against me to cheat and devastate my life. I admitted I felt so shattered that I considered ending things almost daily, while she admitted having similar thoughts. She claimed she couldn't do that to me. In frustration, I screamed at her, "But you can do this to me for a year." After calming down, I asserted that I could never be open and vulnerable to her or anyone else. Again, knowing how she weaponized my fears, weaknesses, and honesty against me. It had forever changed me. Although I had feared this was the catalyst, after reflecting on everything last week about how and when it happened, according to her, I still wasn't sure I believed her claim that she hadn't done this before. I was already running about 45 minutes late from my planned departure time. I knew I had to speed up on the highway, and my mind wasn't in the right place. After leaving, I mentioned that I would ponder what she said, and if I had more to discuss, I'd call her while on the road. However, during the drive, all I could do was blast loud music and cry in intense pain, realizing my thoughts about causing this were confirmed. It was an even more agonizing ride than the first one after D-Day. In the end, I didn't call her. Now, in the sobering light of day, I question not only how I caused this, but also if there's even a slight chance she's seen my posts and is using them against me. To be honest, she isn't active on social media, and I doubt she uses Reddit at all. It was never on her phone, tablet, or in her App Store download history. I also reflect on how foolish I was to let my guard down with anyone, thinking there are things you should never share. If I had kept everything closed up, I wouldn't be in this situation. I consider this karma since I was on the verge of leaving last fall anyway. I feel like I'm just moving on autopilot, and this incident proves I should maintain the facade of being a happy guy and never let my guard down again. It feels like I ruined everything I had. I'm still consulting with my attorney and trying to stay on the path, as I don't know how I can come back to her after this. The truth is, she has reopened the wounds in my heart and torn away everything I was holding on to keep going. Sent via her work email, I informed X that I had hired someone to represent me in legal matters and requested information on who to connect them with. I advised X to seek counsel for the consequences of their actions. X expressed a desire to discuss the situation further and apologized, acknowledging that they couldn't imagine how I must feel. X recognized that they didn't deserve a chance for a conversation before any decisions were made, but suggested that time might help things calm down. X expressed understanding that my opinion of them was likely better than they deserved and proposed discussing counseling and personal matters through text or a call outside of work email. I responded, letting X know that I would be occupied with work in P's move, but would use their personal email for further communication on this matter. X thanked me and asked me to consider their words. They expressed concern for my well-being, acknowledging the loneliness I might be experiencing, and inquired about P's well-being during the move. X sent their love to P and apologized once again, urging me to call soon. I just realized that P, my parent, is losing everything they own, their home of 50-plus years in memories, since they're moving into a facility. How does a person with dementia feel being moved? How do they feel having to be reminded nearly every day because they forgot, then going through the emotions of it all over again? I've been trying to be as gentle as possible, but we're sorting through things to see what they really want. After contemplating the exchange more, the mention of not sending it to work stuck with me. Initially, I thought it made sense. Personal matters shouldn't mix with work email, but I'm pretty sure she must have been using her work phone for this. Her personal one is always clean, and I updated it for her new watch last Christmas. I guess I could have still missed it, though. Update: I found a better place to stay temporarily with a friend who lives close to work, and I've moved in for the time being. While I thought about renting an apartment right away, this arrangement works well for the short term. Now, on to the remaining events. I served her with divorce papers, but she responded contentiously through her attorney. Recently, I had to deal with a maintenance issue at my old home. Thankfully, it wasn't too damaging, but significant enough to require quick handling. When I arrived to deal with it, fortunately, I thought she wasn't around. I met with the contractor, handled the issue, and aimed to be out before she returned. It took several hours, but I managed to move things around and fix the problem. Of course, my luck couldn't be that good. Later that day, I received a call from a doctor saying she had been admitted to the hospital. I'm still her emergency contact and husband, so it wasn't a real surprise. Before I arrived, she had called an ambulance thinking she was having a heart attack. It turned out to be a panic attack, but she told them she had constant self-harming thoughts and was admitted for observation. She's been in there since, so I had to inform her boss about her medical leave. After talking to the doctor, I decided to go and see her. Her doctor said I could visit, but I needed to be non-confrontational since she was in a delicate state. I was conflicted about it, thinking it might be standard cheater script BS. Despite my feelings, I still care for her and don't want her to harm herself or struggle in the future. Despite my feelings, I still care for her and don't want her to harm herself or struggle in the future. In the past, she has been in care for mental health due to unrelated issues, along with another chronic health problem she's dealt with throughout her life. During that time, I was fully present, doing everything I could to help her. Also, selfishly, I don't want this situation to impact her ability to handle our joint affairs. I discussed it with my friend, who said it's up to me what to do about visiting her. I also spoke with my attorney. After the initial visits, they advised me to be cautious, don't make promises, or say anything that could be used against me, etc. I knew before visiting that cheaters often use the threat of self-harm as a manipulation tactic. However, given her history, I'm also aware that this might genuinely be a serious situation for her. I get it. I shouldn't let anything tied to her actions hinder my progress and moving forward with my life. But there's a part of me that feels the need to be there for her. It's frustrating to have these feelings while still wishing none of this had happened, but it did. I feel like I've been firm with her, but seeing her in such a state might set me back. Before you criticize me, I can't just abandon her. It's not in my nature. She really has no one else. Her only real friend lives far away and is dealing with her own serious medical condition. So I informed her doctor that I would visit her in the hospital and did so the following day. When I got there, she was a mess. I brought some things she might need, thinking she would likely be there for at least a few days. She was still sleeping when I arrived, hooked up to an IV and various monitors. None of them seemed related to mental health, but I figured maybe dehydration or something. But all I could think about was how I had seen her sleep so many times, looking beautiful and peaceful, the person I wanted. As I sat there watching her, she started to wake up, and all the feelings of anger and betrayal started to come back. but I held it together. When she finally woke up, she was surprised to see me. She begged me for a hug and forgiveness. I said I was there to make sure she was okay, expressing my worry. I made it clear that I wasn't there to talk about us. We were civil, but there were lots of tears on her side. We talked for a long time. Then she hit me with another bombshell. During her visit to the gynecologist for STD tests and a checkup, they found something still being assessed. Oh boy, I thought, here we go. This crazy situation where she caught an STD and I was going to hear about it. Or maybe not. Fortunately, that wasn't the case. She was found to have fairly aggressive ovarian cancer. Now, I'm no expert, but I know that. Usually, that type of cancer doesn't show obvious symptoms until it's advanced. I had to step out of the room to gather myself for a minute. I had all these emotions going through me and didn't want her to see them. I composed myself and went back in. We talked for a long time. In our talk, I eventually agreed to help her however I can, though part of me wanted to tell her to rely on her boyfriend now. I made it clear that it had nothing to do with us being together. I believe she would do the same for me if the situation were reversed, but who knows? Her panic attack, it turns out, was the result of getting this news, her birthday, which I totally ignored, and getting served all in the same week. It's like the perfect storm hitting her life. Maybe too much karma. She was just feeling like ending her life would be easier than fighting me, this disease, and being alone, etc. Losing everything, and now losing her life on top of it. She also didn't want me to somehow end up bankrupt from her likely medical debt. Her life insurance and giving me the house totally free now would make for a nest egg I could totally start over with. But ultimately, I convinced her that her being around and fighting this with everything possible is the only thing I want for and from her. I made it clear that I am not a reason for her to end herself, etc. So this is what I've been up to lately. Crisscrossing highways for work, visiting my parent, the hospital, my friend's place, and now back to my old home for more of her belongings. She's been moved to a regular room since her doctors believe she's no longer a danger to herself. More tests have been conducted, and today we're expecting precise results on the stage of her condition. Preliminary exams suggest at least stage 2B or higher. If there's a chance it's not stage 4, we might manage, but if it is, we're looking at a shortened but tough outcome. I'm writing this in the hospital cafeteria, waiting for the oncology department to provide more results and details. I'm the type to do anything for anyone. If her actions hadn't pushed me away, I'd be a wreck, not that I haven't been in private. Once again, I'm being the strong one for both of us, attempting to stay optimistic, which goes against my natural pessimism. The most significant development, if there's hope, involves major emergency surgery and chemo, followed by a period of care. I've committed to being there for her through surgery, chemo, and recovery in the best-case scenario. I haven't explicitly said I'd move in and stay with her, though that might be necessary. My stance on divorce hasn't changed. I've consulted my lawyer about the legal implications and whether we can still be considered separated. They say we can consider this an in-house separation given certain conditions. My other concern is avoiding part of her medical debt, which is likely to delay our proceedings. They mentioned amending our settlement agreement, but she would need to agree that none of this is my liability. So, is there a chance I can care for her through this, avoid emotional reconnection, and still move on with my life, regardless of how this unfolds? Update for those still interested, I finally met with the doctors. It's stage 2 billions, and it has spread, but the tumors are still small and haven't reached the bladder or other distant organs like the liver, which, from my understanding, is nearly impossible to cure. She'll undergo serious surgeries and chemo. I had already made up my mind to support her in her battle, regardless of her actions. I won't leave her to face this alone. Some might say it's not my responsibility anymore, but I can't be that tough person I thought I could initially, or what some folks here suggest. Well, I'm too old to care what people think. I'm doing it for myself. I'll continue with the separation and divorce. Unfortunately, I'll probably move back in for an in-house separation to assist her for a while. I've discussed the plan with my attorney. They understand my position and say we can still consider any time I'm there as separated as long as we don't share a bed, which isn't a problem for various reasons. We also need an agreement that she won't make the process more difficult, as it seemed to be her original plan. I'll ensure she understands that a condition of my support is that she doesn't contest or drag out the process. However, I'll agree to give her time to get better situated. I confess I'll feel guilty, as if I'm bargaining with her life. But I guess we all have our limits. She'll undergo surgery in the next few days for additional biopsies and a major operation. The treatment plan is aggressive, but it's better to stop the spread now. I guess I don't need more details than that. In all likelihood, as my post title states, her cheating may have saved her life, as she would likely have discovered this too late otherwise. So, I suppose someone in this situation gets a win. Update. I've been in the hospital with my wife since yesterday morning, and it's been just as awful as everything else that's been happening. Firstly, she's in critical condition. During surgery, they had to stop due to uncontrollable blood pressure. The surgeon removed a significant amount of cancer, but not all of it. Further surgery is too risky at this point. Last night, she had a seizure, causing additional damage and bleeding, leading to another surgery, despite it not being advised earlier to stop internal bleeding. She got out of that surgery earlier this morning, but has been in and out of consciousness. They're doing everything possible to prevent her from having a stroke. I'm not sure if she'll make it, but I've been without sleep for 2 days, imagining the worst. She's a bit more stable, but it's still a delicate situation. Additionally, while waiting for her initial surgery, I used her work phone and saw a message from her affair partner. It was from a few weeks ago, from an unrecognized number. Although she had his other number blocked, she kept their conversation. He was apologizing for how he treated her the last time they met. There's a whole story there that I won't go into, but it happened because I tracked him down, almost doing something foolish and dangerous. He reached out to her and she bargained to meet with him to avoid legal trouble. This was almost a month ago. Anyway, I saw her response, that he was the biggest mistake of her life. She said she hated herself for meeting him and would never be in touch or see him again. For everyone's safety, she asked him not to contact her again. I don't take this as anything since I found it, not something she admitted to me, so I guess she still has her secrets. Although I went through everything, including her work emails and personal accounts, and looked back before last year, I found nothing suspicious before then. Again, it doesn't change my mind about divorce or helping her. I guess I'm just ranting since everything is messed up right now. Whether she lives or dies, she may never know that I know this. It only proves to me that she's still capable of lying to me. I don't even know if we'll ever have the chance to talk about it. At this point, it doesn't really matter. So, either way, I may be done with my posts since nothing else matters if she's not alive, has some brain damage, or is in a worse state than expected. I'll still do what I can for her and hope for the best, but naturally, I expect the worst. The best I can hope for is to get some actual sleep before the weekend. Update: here's the latest update on my challenging situation. My wife's condition has been fluctuating, mostly for the worse. The medical team suspects she had a small stroke, but she's holding on and showing slight improvement over the weekend. While she's not out of the woods, doctors are a bit more hopeful. She's been conscious more, experiencing a lot of pain and on strong medications. They moved her from intensive care, and she'll likely go into rehab before returning home on Thursday. My wife's best friend, Em, reached out to me. We hadn't spoken since this ordeal began, and I assumed she knew and was supporting my wife. I left her a voicemail the night after my wife's first surgery, just in case they hadn't talked, informing her about the critical situation. I suggested that if she wanted to see my wife, she should do so soon in case the worst happened. Although Em and I weren't very close, she and my wife had been friends since their teens and went to college together. We spent time together on holidays and a couple of vacations. Em called on Thursday, expressing sympathy for what we were going through and asking to visit my wife. She also inquired if she could stay at the house, possibly thinking I still lived there. I agreed, even though staying in my own house part-time still causes me pain. Em is a genuinely good person, and I knew losing her friend was weighing on her. I picked her up from the airport Thursday evening and we went straight to the hospital. During the drive, we discussed my wife's condition and everything that happened since the surgery. Em finally revealed that she knew about our situation. She mentioned that my wife had only told her everything a few days before being initially hospitalized. When she received the news about cancer and being served, they hadn't talked much last year, not like before. Em thought it was because my wife struggled with the news about Em's own medical struggles and wasn't good at potentially losing her best friend. The kicker was that Em had shared her suspicions about her husband cheating with my wife. They were working through it, but Em believed it was just emotional, thinking he had a crush on someone at work but didn't pursue it. She advised my wife on how to handle the situation, marriage counseling, set boundaries, and demand the respect she deserved. Em shared how they had argued a lot. When she told my wife she wasn't sure they could still be friends after knowing how deceitful my wife was to both her and me. Em even cursed my wife out, saying she deserved the consequences in the divorce. This was surprising because Em is not someone who usually curses. She's pretty religious and straight-laced. Em mentioned that my wife had called her a few times after, but she had ignored the calls. She thought I was trying to involve her more. When she heard my message, she knew she couldn't go without seeing my wife again if the worst happened, and didn't want it to be their last words. So she called me to come visit. We spent a lot of time together this weekend, not in any inappropriate way, but she shared more insights. After visiting my wife, we talked almost every night until very late. It was nice because she never pressured me to stay together. After each visit, she seemed more lenient. On her last night, she surprised me by revealing that my wife had asked her to discuss DNR do not resuscitate and other end-of-life matters with me. My wife wasn't sure if, in the worst-case scenario, I could take her off life support if her condition worsened. She expressed a desire to end her life to avoid more suffering or living with severe disabilities. My wife asked M to convince me to let her go if the time came and I reached out or couldn't cope with the outcome. I plan to talk to her about this tonight, but am uncertain about what to say. Personally, I don't believe in keeping people alive if they are suffering, and I might do the right thing in the appropriate circumstance. However, I can't commit to anything beyond that, and I worry I might be influenced by my own desire to be done with this, even in the right medical scenario. I think I would carry a lot of guilt forever. I'll also discuss this with my therapist, though my appointment isn't until later in the week. I asked her friend M if she would consider assuming medical power of attorney POA over my wife before she left, and she is thinking about it. I will also approach one of my close relatives, though they live far away, and I can't guarantee their involvement. I'm adamant about making only legal decisions. I briefly talked to my lawyer, and we have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow. However, tonight I will tell my wife that I understand her wishes, but I can't agree to them at this time.